Don't be a bad son or daughter. Mother's Day is less than 2 weeks away right now. What have you done? Have you gotten your mother a present yet? Well, if you're looking for the perfect gift to celebrate the moms in your life, Aura Frames are beautiful Wi-Fi digitally connected picture frames that allow you to share and display unlimited photos. And it's super easy to upload and share photos via the Aura app. And if you're going to give Aura as a gift, the amazing thing about this, you can even personalize the frame with preloaded photos and memories. Also, if your mom or your aunt or your grandma or whomever you're going to give this as a gift to is technically challenged, you can even set up their Wi-Fi or on the, not their actual Wi-Fi, but you can set up the frame to connect to their Wi-Fi. When they take it out of the box, you don't even have to open it up. It doesn't matter. Grandmothers, new mothers, aunts, even the friends in your life, every mom loves an Aura frame. It is named the best digital frame by Wirecutter. Yes, Wirecutter. Aura frames are guaranteed to bring joy to moms of all ages. My case, it's bringing joy to my kids' aunts, or I guess otherwise known as my sisters. So right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com/majority to get $30 off plus free shipping. And it's on their best-selling frame. That's Aura Frames, AURA, frames.com/majority. Use the code majority at checkout to save. Now is the time to get your Mother's Day gift. Don't slack. Terms and conditions apply, of course. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, we're packed. Tyler Vasseur, letter carrier and shop steward in the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Making the National Association of Letter Carriers a little more responsive to its membership, or frankly, a lot more responsive. Then David Dayen, executive editor at the American Prospect, on the recent FTC ruling that non-compete contracts are non-enforceable, and also on the decrepit Live Nation. Meanwhile, Marjorie Taylor Greene announces she's moving ahead with her Mike Johnson ouster plan. Cops and pro-Israel protesters ratchet up the violence on those campus pro-peace protests across the country. Meanwhile, Netanyahu vows to invade Rafah with or without a deal. And the Saudis, when the Saudis say you're not a partner for peace, you know you've got a problem. They don't trust Netanyahu. The Fed to meet today, expected to delay rate cuts. Biden administration moves to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule III drug. Good move. Won't have as much of an impact as we want, but you need legislation for that. On a day that Florida's 6-week abortion ban goes into effect, Democrats in Arizona make their final push to repeal Arizona's total abortion ban. That antebellum one, or actually, I guess it was 1864, so it was during
Bellamy.
As expected, Democrats win that special election in Buffalo, squeezing the Republican majority even more in the House. Mississippi lawmakers make a move to expand Medicaid, but face a Republican governor veto. Johnson & Johnson move forward with a $6.5 billion settlement over talc lawsuits. And if you've been listening to this show over the past 5 or 6 years, you knew this was coming from those interviews I did at the Tort Law Conference in Vegas. Lastly, the EEOC updates workplace harassment guidelines to protect trans rights. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is Wednesday. Some people refer to it as the Hump Day, in which you are halfway past the week, or I guess we're at the middle way of the week. Emma Viglin's celebrating today's Hump Day by not showing up at work.
Sometimes you just let the hump go past itself. You don't need to even go over it yourself.
That's right. Sometimes you bypass the hump and just all of a sudden you're on the other side.
Not working.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is that talc? Is that the Johnson & Johnson?
Yes. Johnson & Johnson baby talcum powder, which has not been, I don't know if they've changed the formula. I believe they have. But for a long time they had stuff that was not good to have in your lungs on this, and they were aware for a long time. I'd have to go back and listen to the interviews. And some of those interviews, I think, are 3 or 4 or 5 years old. When there were tort lawyers who were beginning to bring these cases. They take a long time to develop. But when I go back in October to that conference, we'll see if we can't get a sort of a wrap-up on that. But that's a $6.5 billion settlement that I think is probably over, 10 years. It will be paid out. So
it's just interesting because Neil Katyal, the lawyer, was courtside at the Nuggets-Lakers game saying, how did this happen? And I think part of the way you get courtside at a Lakers game is make $2,465 an hour working on behalf of Johnson & Johnson in that case.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he was representing, I think it was Nestle at the Supreme Court, arguing that while slave labor, child slave labor is bad, it's not necessarily anything that we can do about in this country.
Yep.
In terms of if it's employed in other countries. I firmly believe that everyone deserves counsel in a criminal trial. But some of these big-brained lawyers love to make it like it's part of the system. And if I'm only doing this because I believe in the system. Well, you know what? When you're a defense attorney in a civil case, you don't have to do that. They have enough money. They will find somebody. And if you just happen to be the person sitting in that chair when they come by, it's one of two things. Either you're in desperate need of money, and that's why you're doing it, and you should acknowledge that after the fact, or you're just scummy.
Or you want to go to the Lakers game.
Or you want, or you just, yes, you're just greedy and you don't care about that stuff. So, meanwhile, let's turn to what's going on in D.C. today. This is a sort of a funny little drama of people I don't like, and so I'm enjoying it. Mike Johnson is perhaps one of the probably the second most powerful theocrat we've ever had in office in this country. The first being Mike Pence, and of course he was vice president. Mike Johnson, in an interview last night with News Nation, talking about superstar Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this is the first time he has sort of like stepped out of his genteel demeanor to slag one of his fellow colleagues. He's doing this because he knows the Democrats have already said, we will essentially protect his speakership for the time being. Basically, I think giving us an indication that there was a trade over the supplemental war aid, Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and some aid to Gaza. Here is Mike Johnson with News Nation's Blake Berman.
Let's talk about your future.
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Mm-hmm.
No
Bless her
fan
heart.
of yours.
Bless her heart. Yeah.
Is she a serious lawmaker?
Oh, pause it. Oh, and there you go. Bless her heart. So we now know that is, that is the nasty iteration of that. Incidentally, when I say that too, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, F them.
It's different coming from like a very religious fundamentalist to say bless.
Well, exactly. Yeah. It just goes to show like I'm also insincere when I say it in a way that seems like I actually do care about that person, but go ahead.
No
Bless her
fan
heart.
of yours.
Bless her heart. Yeah.
Is she a serious lawmaker?
I don't think she's proving to be. No. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about her. I've got to do my job. And we do the right thing, and we let the chips fall where they may. And that's my philosophy. That's how we're governing. We're gonna keep the train on the tracks and show the American people that not just what we're against, but what we're for. That there's a conservative agenda that is necessary to get the country back on the right track. And the way for us to do that is to keep and grow the House majority. Descending into chaos and closing the House down and vacating the chair again is exactly the opposite of what needs to happen.
Let's talk about
What a rhino this guy is. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's always standing by the bat phone. She's got all of her Google alerts going.
Oh, was I mentioned?
Constantly updating. And as soon as he says that, Marjorie Taylor Greene schedules this press conference for this morning.
I think the American people need to see a recorded vote of does Congress, does the members of Congress support the uniparty? Is this what they support? I think every member of Congress needs to take that vote and let the chips fall where they may. And so next week, I am going to be calling this
Pause
motion
it for
to
1 second.
vacate.
One of the things that I think people aren't talking about is how much Mike Johnson and Marjorie Taylor Greene agree on chips.
Gambling
and chips and gravity. Those two have found common cause for chips falling where they may.
I do look forward to the vote on does members of Congress support the uniparty.
Well, this is the interesting dynamic here, and I think it's part of the Democrats' calculation. They seem to believe that, with good reason, even if they were to throw the House in chaos again, by not helping Mike Johnson and having the Republicans go for iteration in terms of leadership, putting aside that they probably made a deal with Johnson for the funding. But they also know that simply voting in a way that maintains Johnson's speakership is in and of itself a wedge issue for some of these Republicans. And it'll be interesting to see if Marjorie Taylor Greene, continues to essentially take the sledgehammer to that wedge and pounding on it. But go back a little bit. It's nice, again, to hear them so in sync when it comes to chips and falling.
Every member of Congress needs to take that vote and let the chips fall where they may. And so next week, I am going to be calling this motion to vacate. Absolutely calling it. I can't wait to see Democrats go out and support a Republican speaker and have to go home to their primaries and have to run for Congress again, having supported a Republican speaker, a Christian conservative. I think that'll play well. I'm excited about it. I think
so the interesting thing about this is that she's making it like she has a super plan in which to in which to backfoot Democrats. And the irony, of course, is that the vast majority of these Democrats, particularly ones in any sort of like purplish frontline districts, as it were, are desperate to show that they can reach across the aisle.
They love it, yeah.
They love that stuff, sadly, in my estimation. If only Democratic voters would punish Democrats for doing anything that is helpful to Republicans. But we're not quite there yet.
Let the chips fall where they may.
Schwing State says, what are the chances that if MTG called this vote and the Dems would renege and vote for Jeffries? I mean, Jeffries could get the speakership, but they would still not have the majority. So there's really not necessarily a lot that could happen in terms of legislation. I guess theoretically what you could do is maybe, well, I don't even know if you could rejigger the rules at that point. You wouldn't be able to pass any other operations. It would be basically be frozen. And it's probably not worth their while if they made an agreement with Johnson. But it will, who knows how long that agreement was for. We'll give you 2 votes. We'll give you 3 votes. Who knows? In a moment, we're going to be talking to Tyler Vasseur. He is a letter carrier and a shop steward in the National Association Letter Carriers, Branch 9. And we're seeing in that union sort of the same thing we've seen in other unions, is that there's a growing sort of like members, grassroots movement to become a little bit more militant. And it certainly worked out with the UAW. Then we'll also be talking to David Dayen, executive editor of American Prospect, about both Live Nation and non-compete clauses. But first, a word from our sponsors. I know what most of you are probably thinking when you look at me. Why don't you just use incognito mode? Well, I'll tell you something about incognito mode. It does not hide your activity. Doesn't matter what mode you use or how many times you clear your browsing history, your internet service provider can still see every single website you've ever visited. That's why even when I'm home, I never go online without using ExpressVPN. It is super, super easy to use a VPN. And if you've never used one before, I know it sounds intimidating. Believe me, it is the easiest thing you can possibly do. You put the app on your phone, you press the button. Boom. I want to thank ExpressVPN supporting the Majority Report. And here's their deal. You visit expressvpn.com/majority, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. For those of you who are not so great at math, that means 15 months for the price of 12. ExpressVPN is an app. It reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers, and you can choose which one. Just by location. Or you can just do the default. It doesn't matter. So your ISP can't see the sites you visit. ExpressVPN also keeps all of your information secure by encrypting 100% of your data with the most powerful encryption available. Most of the time, you don't even realize that ExpressVPN is running. It runs completely seamlessly in the background. It is, again, so easy to use. You tap one button, you're protected. Bingo, bango. ExpressVPN is available on all your devices. It's available on your phones, your computers, your smart TV. You can put it onto your router. Super easy. There is no excuse for you not to be using it. Protect your online activity today with the VPN that is rated #1 by CNET and Mashable. Visit my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/majority. You can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/majority, expressvpn.com/majority to learn more. Also, Emma not here today. We've run out, but this is usually the day when I would go in and steal some of her cashews. I'm hoping she's not listening to the show today and doesn't hear me say that. And I would do it very cleverly. I would make sure I would take a picture of what her bag looked like, and so that I didn't move it from that exact spot. But that's one of the only downside from nuts.com. Nuts is that sometimes you can cause you to steal your coworkers' stash. I want to thank nuts.com for supporting the Majority Report. And right now, when you go to nuts.com/majority, new customers get a free gift with a purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more. You got to try this out. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for everything, really. Freshly roasted nuts, dried fruit, sweets, pantry staples that you need for cooking, like specialty flours, and more. Their wide selection means there's something for everybody. Nuts.com offers gluten-free options. They have organic choices. They have diet-friendly products. Doesn't matter whether you're looking for something sweet, something salty or savory, or you need to stock up on cooking essentials. There is something there to try. It is worth just going over there and browsing right now. At nuts.com, quality is the top priority. And here's the deal. You want to get some nuts, you can go to the supermarket and you can get a can of nuts, and it's been sitting on that shelf for God knows how long. Nuts.com, they roast their nuts and they pop their corn the same day it ships. So it reaches you deliciously fresh. Unless you have your own nut farm, you've probably never had nuts this fresh before. Satisfaction is guaranteed. You can shop a la carte anytime or opt into hassle-free auto delivery so you never run out of your favorite items. And if you're already stocked up at home, they also sell directly to businesses and have a bunch of great gift options. Right now, Nuts.com offering new customers a free gift with purchase and free shipping with orders of $29 or more at Nuts.com/majority. So go check out all the delicious options at Nuts.com/majority. You're going to receive a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. That's Nuts.com/majority. Also, your mom or dad with Mother's Day, Father's Day coming up, if they like nuts or dried fruit or sweet or savory snacks, and who doesn't, Nuts.com. We'll put the links in the podcast and YouTube description and also on majority.fm. Quick break, and we'll be right back with Tyler Vasseur. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland off today. Joining me now, Tyler Vasseur. He's a letter carrier and shop steward in the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Tyler, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me. Happy International Workers' Day.
Indeed, on May Day. And first off, let's start off. Where is Branch 9?
We're in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay. And give us you wrote a piece in Labor Notes, and you're talking about trying to build momentum for open bargaining in the letter carriers. Before we get to what open bargaining means, give us the lay of the land in terms of like unions for the post office.
Sure. Yeah. So there's actually 4 unions at the post office. There's the National Association of Letter Carriers, which represents city letter carriers. There's the Rural Letter Carriers Association, which represents just rural carriers. There's the APWU, which represents just about every inside worker, clerks, mechanics, and so on. And then there's one specifically for like the forklift operators, the National Mail Handlers Union. So there's 4 unions. The post office.
And how did it come about that there's like a rural and an urban different unions for that?
I'm actually reading a book right now called Undelivered that's going over the history of the post office, specifically around the 1970 strike into today. And they talked a little bit about how that came about. It was just jurisdictional stuff. They just,
right,
for some reason, when rural delivery was established, a rural union was established there.
So when when there is bargaining to be done, you're all federal workers. How does that go about? I mean, are your contracts synced between urban and rural carriers, or do you have separate contracts? And who is it that the negotiations theoretically take place with?
Yeah, so unfortunately, none of the 4 contracts are synced. There was a time when we bargained all together, and then slowly, I can't remember exactly if it was in the 90s or in the early 2000s, classic sort of divide and conquer tactics were used to say, hey, if you bargain separately, you can probably get more than these other guys. And so now none of the 4 contracts are synced, unfortunately. And then when negotiations happen, it's between the leadership of our union, our executive council, the business agents. There's a bargaining team, and management, USPS's counterparts. That's who the negotiations go on between.
And I should say, I mean, you noted that today's International Workers' Day, May 1st. Sean Fain, the head of the UAW, has called for, in the wake of the successful strikes they had against the Big Three months ago, called for everybody to try and sync their contracts up for May 1st, 2028. And the value of that, of course, is, and particularly, I would imagine, across the 4 unions in the Postal Service, is that if they express solidarity with each other, their ability to bring the Postal Service to its knees is even that much more powerful. And it makes you question as to why things would be unsynced in this area. And of course, starting in the 70s, we started to see sort of the diminishment of union power across the board. All right, so you're calling for open bargaining. What does open bargaining mean?
So what we're calling open bargaining is so we passed a resolution in Branch 9. It's taken off across the country. We can get into that in a second. But what our open bargaining resolution calls for, it calls for more transparency and regular updates during the negotiation process, similar to what the UAW or maybe the Teamsters at UPS did, where they regularly release information. This is what management is offering. This is what we're fighting for. So we talk about transparency, regular updates during the negotiation process, but then really crucially, the important aspect of this is it's not just transparency, but also how do we mobilize the membership? How do we activate the membership to put pressure on USPS, win over the public to our side, build solidarity with other unions, and find leverage points so that we can actually go into negotiations in a position of strength, on the heels of nationwide rallies calling for our main demands. And so that's what our open bargaining resolution calls for, is transparency, regular updates, and the mobilization of members through public rallies around key demands that we're fighting for.
And so in a general sense, I mean, what you're building is a reform movement within your union, the national letter carriers. What is the need for reform? I mean, walk us through where the deficiencies have been with your union, from your perspective.
So, I mean, where to even begin? The biggest thing, I think what a lot of NALC members are starting to see and their eyes are opening is that while they're seeing other unions, especially over the course of the last few years, and in particular 2023, they saw other unions mobilize their members, conduct public contract campaigns, strike action, and even a whole lot short of strike action that strengthen their unions, strengthen their positions, and that they're fighting for, and they fought and won contracts that had record wage gains compared to the previous contract cycles, previous decades. And so I think, especially over the last year, workers and NALC members have seen other unions fight and win, and they're looking around going, we're not even getting updates. And when we do get updates, it's about the process. It's not about what are we fighting for? How can we activate the membership around what we're fighting for? How can we actually win that? I think inflation has played a really, really key role in, radicalizing workers. I think there's workers because of inflation, because they're seeing other unions fight and win, there's heightened expectations. But there's a lot more to it. There's, there was just a whole sort of corruption scandal with our national leadership section of the executive council brought charges against the president. They were very credible charges. We all read the report, and all of them were dropped except for one, sort of slap on the wrist. Now we can get into that later, but it's right. All of these things are combining to, I think, workers have heightened expectations right now of what they expect from their union.
Well, certainly there's been a huge, I mean, the UAW is a huge example of a reform movement. Sean Fain came from that reform movement, and by all accounts, completely changed the way that leadership in the union communicated with union members, and how much they empowered union members to be involved in, not directly into the negotiations, although probably more so, but also in terms of like deciding where, what we're going to do, how militant, how much we're going to demand. And I'm looking at what happened after the 2008 financial crisis. There was there was a contract imposed by an arbitration process. And again, this also, I should say, in 2008 was 2 years after the Postal Service, under a Republican Congress, was forced to pre-fund its retirement and medical insurance accounts by 75 years in advance, which no entity, private, public, maybe in the world, has ever been obligated to do. But it was a way for Republicans to sort of force privatization. And all of a sudden there was this massive operating deficit that the post office was working on. Post office traditionally gets no money from the U.S. government. It is self-funding. So tell us what came out of that contract, because it's astonishing how backwards we went in terms of providing compensation for postal workers.
Yeah, so in that contract, the contract immediately following the financial crisis, I mean, we saw it not just in the letter carriers, but we saw unions across the country take concessionary contracts. That was a big part of the push for a fight back in the UAW, is they said, we gave you all these concessions, and now there's record profits. Where are those profits coming from? They're coming from our labor. We need, X, Y, and Z. Same thing happened at the post office. In particular, I'm familiar with the NALC contract. In that contract, there was a non-career workforce was pushed through called city carrier assistants, where, you can be a city carrier assistant for an undisclosed amount of time, a year, 2 years, 3, 4, and that you're forced with mandatory overtime whenever they need to use you. The wages were slashed really much lower. A two-tier system was established where technically they say, it's technically not a two-tier system. You end on the same top pay, but it takes, I can't remember the exact numbers. But
it's 8 years. 14 years. 14 years to reach it.
And we used to be regularly 8 years to reach top pay. I started in 2018 at $16.76 an hour, and I have coworkers who started in the early 2000s making $20 an hour. In 2003, 2004, and just to show you how much wages and working conditions have deteriorated at the post office, and how they used the pre-funding mandate, that retiree benefits thing that the Republicans pushed through, how they used the pre-funding mandate and the financial crisis in broader society. They used that to attack wages, attack working conditions. And I think we're dealing with that now. And I think workers, because of their heightened expectations, are saying, okay, well, we're not going to accept that anymore. We need to fight for more.
And but leadership seems to be unreachable on some level.
That's right. Yeah. That's what we're trying to do.
So there seems to be like two aspects to this. One is pushing specifically for more open bargaining, but also this is it appears it's gonna require a reform of the union, either in terms of its attitude or its leadership or both. And so how are you going about that?
Yeah, so I think to me, this open bargaining resolution. So we passed it in Branch 9 in Minneapolis back in November. And then we thought, okay, let's see if we can get some traction on this. It only takes one branch passing a resolution. It goes to the convention. You don't need a dozen branches to do it, but you can get other branches, and we call our locals branches. It's for clarification. It's an old union. If we wanted to have built-in support, we wanted to get as many branches discussing these ideas, passing the resolution as possible, signing down. And so we've gotten 25 NALC branches and one state association so far that have passed this resolution. So we...
When is the convention?
Convention's in August in Boston. And so the point I was trying to get to was the open bargaining resolution. We put the call out there. Okay, it's one thing to put it out there. Let's actually try to get organized. Let's organize Zoom meetings. And so we've been organizing monthly, nationwide organizing meetings on Zoom starting in January. And we've done one roughly once a month until then around the open bargaining resolution. Hey, do you want to fight to build a fighting NALC? Pass the open bargaining, come to these meetings, discuss these ideas, pass the open bargaining resolution. Through that process, we've found that there are hundreds, and in reality, thousands, although we've made contact with hundreds and hundreds of NALC members who don't want to just fight for open bargaining. They want to fight to transform our union. They're looking around and seeing, there was it was kind of a joke that an NALC member said at the last meeting. She said, and she's in the Detroit area. She jokingly said, yeah, we always joke at our station, we need a Sean. And I said, what do you mean by that? She said, Sean Fain, Sean O'Brien, just kind of people are seeing that there are other leaders, and we can discuss all day long critiques of this or that approach that these leaders have taken. But the point is, we're in a new era for the labor movement, and we're seeing leaders, step into that role and actually take up the fight. We're seeing members wanting to get more involved. And so through open bargaining and through trying to build the movement to get the open bargaining resolution passed in as many branches as possible, it's actually become clear to us that what we likely need is to build an actual reform caucus, a reform movement in the union. Now that's a term that I think is becoming more and more popular this year. I just was at the Labor Notes conference a few weeks ago, and that was, it's incredible to see. It's not just happening in the letter carriers. It's not just happening in the UAW. It's happening around the country. And so that, I think, is what the next step that the people that I work with most closely in the Build a Fighting NALC movement, how do we take this and actually build, there's a real potential there, but we got to be smart about how we launch something and make sure we have a solid program, bring along as many members as possible in that process.
Okay, so if I'm working at a branch in Worcester, Mass, or I'm in, I'm trying to think of other cities outside of Worcester. I can't think of any other cities in the country. But how do I get in touch with you if I want to just listen in on one of these Zoom meetings, find out about both the open bargaining resolution for the convention in August, but also maybe the next steps in developing a reform caucus? How do I do that?
So I've been pretty open about just sharing my email with people. So far, it's worked out. We hasn't gotten too crazy.
I might get a second email if I were you. But if you want to do that, or people can also, I would imagine, hit you up on Twitter, maybe, or.
I'm not on Twitter,
okay.
Unfortunately, for my own.
All right, then give your email out, buddy.
No, but the biggest thing is attend these our next upcoming meetings on June 2nd. And there's a number of mail carrier specific podcasts that are very widely listened to that I've been able to go on for interviews. It's the reason I got this microphone and get the word out. And they've been really good about sharing that information on this. There's 24 mail carrier Facebook groups and Reddit and on Discord, and getting the information out that way. And so, I'd be happy to share that registration link with you all here at Majority Report.
We'll take that and we will post it in both when we clip this and in the main show description, both the podcast and the YouTube and on the website. Lastly, let me ask you one more question. I'm just getting one from an IMer entitled "The Worst Mailman." Does Tyler see David Noble as a credible challenger to current leadership?
I respect David Noble's work that he's done for decades in this union. For a long time, he was the lone voice of dissent and reform within the NALC. And I think now we're starting to actually see that there's a broader movement and a broader sort of membership that wants to get involved. And so I think for the next election, there is actually a pretty credible slate that's being put together from, national and local leadership from around the country calling themselves the Concerned Letter Carriers, CLC, and they're putting together a reform slate to challenge the current administration in 2026. And for me, that is the most serious challenge that we will see against this administration, against this sort of entrenched bureaucracy that exists at the top in NALC. And so for me, I would say the CLC is where I would put my support. And I think that's the most credible option that we have to build a fighting NALC, actually take leadership and put forward a fight, mobilize the members, and actually, win serious gains for the members of the NALC.
Tyler Vasseur, we will take your email and we will put it in that description if you want us to. At the very least, we will put the link to that registration.
Registration would be great, yeah.
Letter carrier and shop steward in the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Gmail, get a second email address. So trust me on this. Really appreciate you coming on today.
All right. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, David Dayen, who will also be giving out his email address in just a moment. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland off today. Nevertheless, David Dayen did show up. And despite Emma's absence, he's the executive editor of the American Prospect. Also the host of the weekly American Prospect Roundup on Fridays.
The weekly Roundup. This is like
on demand.
This is like Fox and Right Side Broadcasting Network getting together.
Exactly. This is a big crossover episode.
Yeah, big crossover.
And my understanding is that your Friday show is best enjoyed on demand, right? When you can actually play it at any time.
You can enjoy it anytime you want, just as you can enjoy the Majority Report anytime.
That's also true. That's also true.
You have all kinds of we are available when you need it.
Well, I wanted you on today because we just had a letter carrier on, and I know that nobody shares my obsessions with the post office more than you. In fact, maybe your obsession with the post office was probably my gateway drug for that. But
yeah, I mean, obviously it's waned a bit since we had a pilot program alleged for a postal banking option that I think the Prospect in testing the system represented about 20% of the transactions.
Yeah, well, they did a very good job about making it not clear that it existed, too.
Yes, that is true.
And I would say
designed to fail.
Hopefully, hope springs eternal. Maybe that'll be something in the future that an administration will expend.
Look, I mean, the last couple weeks, we have seen the possibilities there. of what you can do with personnel with the will and ability to get things done, and a creative group of ideas. I mean,
that is the segue into the FTCs. Let's talk about this. I mean, this is a big deal. The FTC, they had announced, I guess it was a year ago or so, maybe 9 months, that they were going to start the process of finalizing or establishing this rule. What is the rule? What is their authority to do so?
Yeah, it goes back to the beginning of 2023, actually, is when they proposed this rule to ban non-compete agreements. So if non-compete started as a way to protect and preserve corporate trade secrets, really, among senior executives in various fields. They said, you know what, you can't go to our rival and tell them everything that we do, and then give your new company an unfair advantage. That was the idea. Now, there are other trade secret laws that restrict that, but these agreements sort of became somewhat standard in among senior executives. And over the last 20 years, they have bled into all sorts of different occupations, as ridiculous as dog groomers, as short order cooks, as janitors.
Fast food restaurants sometimes will do this as well.
Fast food restaurants. As if there is just a tremendous amount of trade secrets that you get by grooming a dog, that you are giving your new business an unfair advantage for. Roughly 30 million people in the United States work under non-compete agreements or some variation thereof.
Insane.
Yeah,
because that seems like it's probably like what, 20% of our workforce?
It's more like 30. It's an incredible number, and according to the, why is this done? It's very clear. It's a wage suppression tactic. If you can't, by your own contract, go across the street to a competitor of your business, then your business doesn't have to worry about that competitor offering you more money for your labor. It's a version of what we call monopsony. It shrinks the pool of buyers of labor, the pool of companies, employers, for your particular skills and talents. And it's nothing more than wage suppression. It's also bad for the economy. I live in a state, California, that actually made non-competes illegal in the 1800s, made these kind of agreements illegal. And it also happens to be the home of Silicon Valley and a tremendous amount of innovation in this economy and high incomes, because engineers and folks that work in tech do not have to worry about this. And so this is where these businesses have traditionally been located.
It makes it easier to start a new business, in other words, because you don't have to go far afield to find.
Right. It's not a lead weight on competition, and so what the FTC did is they put out this proposed rule in January of 2023, and they sought comments. They got over 26,000 comments. Over 25,000 of those were positive. Saying,
I can't do the math on that, but that seems like an overwhelming majority.
A significant amount, yeah, and saying that this is a real strain on my career, my livelihood, my life. And so a couple weeks ago, the FTC came out and said, we're going to ban all these non-competes. The only ones that are still going to be enforceable are ones on senior executives that were already in place before the ban.
And so there's no new, that's amazing. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the IMs we got. My ex-girlfriend was under a non-compete agreement for her job of Brazilian waxing. Someone else says, my wife was a dog groomer and used to work for PetSmart. We had to move to a different state to start her grooming business after PetSmart threatened us. I mean,
and another way they do this is through something called training repayment agreement provisions, where in the contract it'll say, oh, you can go across the street to PetSmart, but you owe us all the money that we spent on you as a worker teaching you how to groom dogs. And by the way, it comes to $50,000 or some ridiculous amount. So in the initial rule, these weren't totally banned, but it's much stronger now in the final rule that these trap agreements, these training repayment agreement provisions, are going to be severely restricted under this new rule.
I mean, it is amazing to me that we had 30% of the workforce under these type of restrictions and never, ever heard about it. I mean, right. I mean, you know, like obviously, like I've heard about it a little bit, but it's not anything that's talked about in general. And it has been a huge wage suppression tool. I mean, that's why I had everybody here sign one, because I didn't, that was the best way to keep them from doing other shows.
Absolutely. So yeah, nobody listens to the show. So
I'm saying these guys.
No, why would they? They're busy. They're busy on the internet. So the FTC estimates that the annual change in pay because of this ban will be $300 billion a year.
That's amazing.
$300 billion a year in compensation that will now properly not stay in profits, but will go to workers because they have more bargaining power.
How?
Unless.
Well, I was just about to say, how is it that the Populist Republican Party or its patrons at the Chamber of Commerce will stop this?
I mean, interestingly, there is bipartisan support for non-compete bans on Capitol Hill. You know, when this came out, Matt Gaetz labeled himself for not the first time as a conservative who's supporter of Lena Khan, the chair of the FTC. And there are bipartisan bills in Congress. However, the group that you correctly designated that doesn't like this is the business community, because they like that $300 billion to be able to keep that to themselves rather than having to distribute it to their workers. So,
well, it's also, I would imagine it's also not, and I just want to just, make this point clear. It's wage suppression, but it also is a serious tool of control, because not only are you not having to pay your workers more, they're having to take more crap from you as a boss, because they have less options. That's it. Bottom line. Even if they went across the street for the same amount of money, but maybe they had better hours or they had more respect none of that is a threat anymore because you've locked them in. You're not going to be able to do what you can do because I've just signed you up and you're basically, I mean, on some level, it's sort of like indentured servitude.
They have fewer options, and also because of the effect on startups, the inability for startups to get the talent they need to start new competing businesses, it's a tool of market power. It's a tool to keep incumbent firms free of competition from nascent competitors. So there are a variety of reasons why the Chamber of Commerce, in particular, would be very interested in keeping this arrangement under the status quo. So it actually started right before them. It took the Chamber of Commerce all of one day to file a lawsuit. Surprisingly, where do you think the lawsuit was filed, Sam?
Well, I'm going to guess it was probably like in the Fifth Circuit federal courts or somewhere around there, right? Was it?
Yeah, it was actually in Texas, where this apparently is a big problem.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Because the day before the Chamber of Commerce's lawsuit, just hours after the non-compete ban was put into place, finalized by the FTC, a company called Ryan LLC, which is a real piece of work company, they filed their lawsuit a day earlier. Now, the lawyer that was designated to file that lawsuit, their chief counsel, is a guy named Eugene Scalia.
Where have I heard that name before?
You might have heard that name before because he is the son of the former Supreme Court Justice. He was also Donald Trump's labor secretary.
Yes.
And when he's not in office, he is generally seen as the hired gun to knock out rules. He did this throughout the Obama administration and here again during the Biden administration.
Did they both file in Texas? Because
Indeed. They filed in different parts of Texas.
Now, there's been a change to the sort of like to the venue shopping. Well, there's been a change in the venue shop. It hasn't taken place yet.
There was an alleged change to the venue shopping, but so the Judicial Conference came out and said, we should do this differently so that there aren't these circumstances like there are in Texas where there is a judicial district with one judge. And so if you file in Amarillo, you're going to get that judge who happens to be a Trump appointed judge to hear your case. So the Judicial Conference said, well, what we should actually do is if you file in Amarillo, you should give it to the entire district there, not just Amarillo, but the entire northern district of Texas, for example, in the case of Amarillo. So that there would be some random assignment there. And the chief judge of the Northern District of Texas said, nope, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
I didn't realize.
And a lot of pressure from the Republicans in Congress. Basically, the Judicial Conference stood down and said this was non-binding guidance. And would you please change your policy? To which the head of the Northern District of Texas said no.
No, thank you.
So that we're still in the situation of judge shopping, and that's why, of course, these plaintiffs are filing in Texas, where they pretty much know. Even under the Judicial Conference's rule, it's not like there are a bunch of liberal judges in Texas. The fact that we have the blue slip rule, and there's a lot of deference given to particular home state senators over who the judges are in their particular areas, means that if you're filing in Texas, you have a pretty good chance, no matter where you file, that you're going to file in front of a conservative judge.
I imagine too, if you put in multiple cases, that just increases your odds. It's like putting down a couple more chips on a roulette wheel. You've got more bites at that apple. So
they got a Trump judge in the Eastern District for the Chamber of Commerce case. They, I believe, have a Trump judge in the Northern District for this case of Ryan LLC. By the way, Ryan LLC, there's this guy named G. Brent Ryan who's the head of it. And it's basically a business tax services company. They get huge discounts on corporate taxes for their clients. This guy literally advised Trump on his tax plan in 2016, before the 2016 election. They gave several hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Trump inauguration. He's a part of the conservative ecosystem.
Right.
And then he hired Trump's Secretary of Labor to file this case in the jurisdiction. Now, so it was in Texas. That's the district court level. If it goes to an appeals court, it would go to the Fifth Circuit, and if it goes beyond that, it would go to the Supreme Court, where there's a conservative majority. So we basically have this funnel for these kinds of advances, regulatory advances by the Biden administration, where they never have to touch anything but a conservative activist, essentially, in terms of a judge, to see whether or not they will be allowed to go through. And the arguments being made here are the same arguments we've heard over and over. First of all, they say that, well, the FTC isn't allowed to write rules, even though there's a very clear language in the FTC Act that says they are allowed to write rules and regulations. And then in the same breath, and this is true in both of the lawsuits, they say they're not allowed to write rules. But even if they are, they're not allowed to write this rule because this rule is a major question. And
$300 billion. It means it's a major question doctrine, which is, just to remind people, this is a doctrine that is significantly young, about the same age as my daughter, who is a freshman in college, and not even really that old. Let me put it this way. It did not exist anywhere except for in the minds of some people, maybe in the Federalist Society. Scalia, I think it was, oddly enough, Scalia may have brought it up about 18 years ago, just sort of like offhandedly. This is sort of a major question. And within the past couple of years, the Supreme Court has decided we don't really need a principle in law. We just need essentially a do not pass, go, collect $200 type of card, which is a wild card where if we look at something and we think it shouldn't really fall into the rubric of anything that's established, written or in terms of common law, we're just going to call it the major questions doctrine or a major question. And therefore we can just decide, we don't want this to happen.
The specific thing they say is that, if it's such a big rule, then Congress should have said very specifically what it is they wanted done. You can't have the regulatory agencies make those determinations. Now, I mean, the funny thing is that the FTC was put in place because there was a feeling in Congress at the time, this is in the early 20th century, that the Sherman Act, the antitrust laws, were not working because they were getting into the courts and it was a slow process. And so they said, what we want to do is create an agency that has the ability to enforce these things and keep up with the innovations of business in their various practices. That's literally why the FTC exists, is because Congress said, we need to put these major questions of the evolving state of American business in the hands of an expert agency.
I mean, that's the same theory exists for something like the EPA and saying, we want a Clean Water Act, and we're not going to know the new chemicals that corporations decide they need for their business practices and dump it in the river. And of course, we can't be in the business of like sitting there with a test tube every day and voting on the latest poison that they're putting in the river. The same theory.
Yes, exactly. The other funny sidelight here is that where Scalia enters this picture is his version of this doctrine is, well, if a law hasn't been used in a while, then it shouldn't be allowed to be used. Essentially, he said, and the way he phrased it is, we shouldn't hide elephants in mouse holes. This was the Scalia statement, very, very wise Scalia statement that was in one of these particular cases. In the Ryan LLC lawsuit written by his son, he quotes that. So he's quoting his own dad in saying that, which is a ridiculous notion. Like somehow that laws have a time limit, that if you don't use them, that they blow up like they're a bomb or something. This has no real meaning in any kind of real jurisprudence except for at the Supreme Court right now.
And particularly at a Supreme Court that basically says we're going to determine the meaning of today's laws based upon what they were 250 years ago or something, or what the context in which they were drafted. All right, so let me ask you this. Has this rule gone into effect and can be stopped by it being enjoined in one of these district courts in Texas, which is the way they've been doing it? Like, so today, are these contracts null and void as far as the FTC is concerned, or what?
No, there's a 4-month delay in terms of when these will be fully rendered void. And so in that time is the ability for an injunction. So that is what both the Chamber of Commerce and this Ryan LLC plaintiff, that's what they're asking for. And you know, I mean, it's hard to say they won't get it at all. It's hard to be very confident with the state of the courts that we have. You know, I think the FTC has a very good case to make that they've prepared for this for a while. And there's a larger thing going on here, which is Lina Khan, even before she got to the FTC, wrote this paper with Rohit Chopra, who was at the time on the FTC, saying the FTC has all this rulemaking authority and they never use it. It was basically dormant rulemaking authority for 40 years. Basically, they stopped in the late 1970s. And so she wrote this paper with Chopra and said, you know, actually, the FTC has the ability to do this, and they should take this action if they see unfair methods of competition, which this, you know, a non-compete rule certainly sounds like an unfair method of competition, that they should make, instead of going on a case-by-case basis, having to adjudicate every example of this and apply it to the unfair methods of competition rule, they should make a blanket bright line rule that says, no, you can't do this. And then they enforce it after the fact. When Khan got into office, they wrote up a policy guidance statement that said, we have the ability to write these rules. And here's all the reasons why. And we're going to show you. And in the DC circuit, there was a ruling in the 1970s that said, yes, the FTC has the ability to make these rules. And they did make these rules throughout the 60s and throughout the 70s. And then they just stopped. But so then the non-compete became the first test case of this. They're like, we're going to pick an egregious set of behaviors, and we're going to write our unfair methods of competition rule around it. And we're going to dare the other side to try to get rid of it, because it's incredibly unpopular to say I'm for non-compete rules, right? So this case really is going to determine whether or not the FTC has rulemaking authority at all. And if they do, they can use it in a whole host of other contexts. So banning exclusive deals where you say, I'm going to make a contract and you're a sole source on it. So maybe, the potential legislation we saw around big tech where they self-preference their own products.
Yep.
That could be seen as an unfair method of competition. The FTC could write a rule saying you can't self-preference. So all of this rulemaking is contingent on this surviving this court challenge. And so that's why it's even more important than just non-compete.
I mean, in some instances, it sort of feels like that's actually the actual story here for the chamber. This is for the chamber and for, Ryan LLC and whatever the conservative movement and corporate movement is. This is the idea that it's about non-competes is secondary to the idea that we can incapacitate the FTC from doing any rules in any time in the future. And that's the real principle that they're fighting on. All right. I wanted to talk about the Live Nation, and maybe we'll have to do that at another time. But let's tease that story so we will link to it and people can check it out. You went to
we'll tease it for the Prospect Weekly Roundup for Thursday. We'll just get people excited about it.
Is it on Thursday?
I'm sorry, on Fridays. Fridays
Thursdays.
12:30.
People should tune in on Thursdays.
Eastern time.
Thursdays. Tune in on Thursdays for the.
Look, as long as they're not tuning in the Majority Report,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter to me what day it is.
Well, if you want to hear more about this Live Nation thing, you'll be able to watch it on demand on the Prospects channel. But give us just sum it up for us. Use the napkin as a sum up for us, because it was really that was pretty amazing.
It's unbelievable. So, look, Live Nation is under antitrust investigation. The Justice Department probably within weeks is going to file a lawsuit against them. There's legislation in Congress that is looking at not only ticketing markets, but the way that Live Nation, which is a dominant player in ticketing, in event management, in artist promotion, in venue operations. The way that their business practices go, the Congress is looking at, dismantling those. So they need friends, right? And so who do they go to when they need friends? They go to DC insider media. So one thing that is a little less understood around, everybody knows about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and like there's this glitzy affair in Washington where the media elite and the political elite and a bunch of celebrities get together and they have a laugh or two. But there's now like a whole week of events around the Correspondents' Dinner where these media outlets throw parties that they invite people to. And Axios is one of these DC kind of insider media organizations. And they threw 2 parties last week around the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
That's amazing.
And Live Nation was the co-host of both of these events. And so you mentioned napkins. So I was passed a picture of the cocktail napkins at one of these events, which, by the way, Jelly Roll performed at, who is an artist. Live Nation produces his concerts, his tours.
No, wait a second. So am I to understand you were not at any of these parties?
They had security locked down pretty tight, and so the prospect did not get into any of these parties. But
you were not invited.
We were. I was not invited. But
they don't get the heavy hitters in DC.
I obtained this cocktail napkin, and the napkin was lobbying. Basically, the napkin said on it, I don't have the exact quote.
I have it. It's fans paid on average $38. This is what, like, it's a picture of a napkin. Can you get this, Bradley, and put it up there?
Yeah. Picture of
Bradley,
a napkin.
It's a picture of the napkin. It says Live Nation in the corner, and it says fans paid an average of $38 an hour, an entry-level U.S. concert ticket in 2023. So the idea is basically to let all of the reporters know, like, man, it is cheap to see a show these days. Here, we just put it up.
Yeah, there we go.
And incidentally,
to let the reporters know, to let the political types who are there know, to let the staffers know, that's who goes to these things, that it's not a big deal. Now let's break that down, right? It doesn't say Live Nation concerts. It just says concerts, right? It says entry level ticket. I have no idea what that means. Is that like the obstructed view seats in an amphitheater?
Couldn't it just mean like
no
$5 at the local bar to come and see, anybody play or something?
It could be something with a $10 cover charge. So it's a meaningless statistic. It's a ridiculous statistic. You can't talk to the statistic. It's a napkin. You can't exactly get more information from it to understand the context of it. And there were other napkins that had other quotes on it, by the way. It's just sort of seeding the propaganda environment for Live Nation. And this is part of and I say this in peace, this is part of an overall process. Live Nation, about 5-6 years ago, had 4 lobbyists in Washington. They now have 37.
Wow.
25 of those are former staffers. 2 of those are former members of Congress. One of them is the former chief of staff to Amy Klobuchar, who's the biggest critic of Live Nation in Washington.
That's
so
amazing.
There is this huge blitz, millions and millions of dollars in lobbying to try to manage the information environment, right, around an imminent lawsuit against the company, and also this potential legislation, which is bipartisan and actually has some momentum behind it.
Well, folks can hear more about this both and we will link to your piece at the American Prospect and on the roundup that you do sometime during the week. And I will also say that that napkin gave me a great idea, because when I'm going to print up a bunch when Saul has his bar mitzvah, and I'm still working on like what I'm going to put on the
That's
the
a great idea. It should just be the Live Nation napkins.
Well,
just,
or I could
maybe you
do
can
that
buy
one,
them somewhere.
or I could just remind people, how much this dinner cost or something like that. I don't know. There'll be a bunch of, but it's I feel like it's an underutilized tool in which to
Absolutely
shape people's
look,
perspective.
You don't have to pay additional expenses for napkin lobbyists. You don't have to worry about whether they're going to stay on message. It's going to be clear. It's going to be right there in front of you. You're going to get access. I think napkin lobbying is a next frontier.
I don't know why we don't have Majority Report napkins on our merch page, frankly. And we're gonna this is gonna be the start of something new. But David Dayen, always a pleasure, executive editor at the American Prospect. Again, we'll put links to both pieces on Live Nation and what the FTC's latest rulemaking will mean or may mean going forward. Always a pleasure.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks. Folks, Miller time. Hey, Sam, have you ever considered acting in a pharmaceutical commercials? We need someone to play the potential side effects of nausea and bloating that might come with the drug. Thanks. I don't know what is going on today, but we're going to head into the fun half in just a moment. Want to remind you, our merch store, we've got 20th anniversary. It's been 20 years. 20 years. We've got mugs, we've got hats, we've got shirts. 20-year anniversary of the Majority Report. Head to shop.majorityreportradio.com and you will be able to pick up an anniversary mug or whatever it is. Check it out. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Also, your support, that's what keeps this show humming along. Become a member today. Join themajorityreport.com. Join themajorityreport.com. Join the Discord. If you're a letter carrier, you want to trade stories, you want to hook up with Tyler Vasseur, we've got a lot of people in the Discord who I know. We've been talking about reforming the letter carriers union. MajorityDiscord.com. Also, justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. It is a co-op. Everything is fair trade. They support their farmers, and they also have the Majority Report blend. It's a triple win, win-win-win, as we used to say back in the day. Justcoffee.coop. Bradley, ESVN.
On ESPN on Monday, we recapped the NFL draft as well as the what had transpired in the NBA and NHL playoffs as of the time of our us going on air. So we were not able to discuss the gut-wrenching, rip your heart out loss that the Knicks suffered at the hands of the Philadelphia 76ers last night.
That's why Emma's gone today.
Which is potentially one of the reasons why Emma did not come in today. So youtube.com/ESVN show if you would like to catch up there or check out some of our clips, and we'll be back on Monday.
Matt!
Last night on Left Reckoning, we had Danny Bessner talking about his barn burner of article that's been really controversial about the death of Hollywood in Harper's Magazine, and we also talk in the fun half about Vivek Ramaswamy and Joe Rogan. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Folks, we will see you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us
this? Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Cedar! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Cedar on the Majority Report. I'm going to call in on the phone thing. Of course, I should have done that earlier. In a moment, we will open up the phone lines. First, last night, violence ratcheted up really on both coasts. These protests against the U.S. supporting Israel's onslaught in Gaza. At Columbia University, the students took over a building, and do we have footage of the cops entering into this building via a big ladder?
I don't know if the ramps in this footage.
I don't know if we have the ramps in this footage, but they infiltrated this like I mean, as if it was some type of hostage situation. I mean, look, the tradition of students taking over campus buildings is
including that one
in particular is at least 65 years old. It happened multiple times when I was in college, and I went to not a particularly radical college at all. And so the overreaction here is pretty stunning. But let's just watch this briefly, and then we'll show what took place in I guess it was in UCLA, right? But
also just a note on this, people like Tom Cotton or whatever were talking about outside agitators. Also, David Axelrod implied that it'll be interesting to see how many of these people aren't students within there, and they've apparently released the list, and it's all students. So just a note.
Of course, it's all students. I mean, I imagine there are people that have stopped by.
Friends,
but the idea that outside agitators are going to get much out of on college campuses is absurd. It's just an absurd, and it's a classic, timeless tactic to claim where it's members of the community. Like, I mean, like, who are these outside agitators? It's the whole country is providing taxes. Are they saying like they're from a different country or aliens? Or it's just like, this is as if these students are exclusively talking about their colleges. It is about, obviously they want their colleges to divest, but it's also about saying, this is the venue in which we protest. Go ahead.
What the actual fuck?
There you go. You can see they're bringing, I mean, look at that. Look at that equipment that they are bringing. The police department has its own sort of dedicated ramp and ladder situation that, first off, like, I can't even believe our taxpayers are paying for
Crazy.
this. But the idea that they are deploying this amount of resources to get people out of a protest, and there they go, going up with shields, as if they're going into some type of like hostage situation or armed revolt. These are just students who are camping out in this building. It's really, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And then let's go to UCLA. There was a peaceful encampment. Students, they had put up, sort of like the police medical barricades, and then they had to put up plywood there because pro-Israel protesters came and started throwing stuff at the people in these encampments, many of whom were Jewish students who were in this encampment basically saying, no genocide in my name. And here is, and I don't know if you'll catch a glimpse, but there's a lot of images where you just see the cops just watching this. Just watching this. Go ahead.
You're gonna block Jewish kids? Yeah, let's see you. We fighting back, bitch! Get the terrorists if you're talking about station!
Now, I just want to make it clear. Pause it. When you talk about outside agitators, now keep the images up there. Go back, turn it to where it was. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, you get a sense of like, A, you've got these hooded guys. They don't look like college students to me, these counter protesters. Where is the outcry of these counter protests? Like, what outside element are these people?
Look at them wearing masks. Remember what Michael Tracy
wearing masks and coming with hockey sticks, and they are instigating the violence. The police are doing nothing. They are clearly outside agitators. These are not college students there. And yet we'll hear nothing about it. And, the bottom line is like, look, this battle between counter protesters and protesters is a sideshow to the issue in which people are protesting about. These counter protesters just don't like the idea that people would be defending victims of, and if you want to parse the word, genocide and ethnic cleansing. There is no entity in the world right now that denies the slaughter that is going on. It's just that in some corners, people are like, well, they deserve it.
We want a second Nakba, as these protesters also said.
Then when you have the finance minister of Israel basically saying we want to wipe them out, we're reinvoking Amalek. That's what's going on there. But the way this is being reported in all mainstream media is just, it is both distraction 101, but also, the way that they're bringing They're trying to find a Jewish student who is clearly served up by some APAC entity, as opposed to bringing on the people who are being victimized by these counter protesters. It's gross.
Yeah, and Emma posted on her Instagram this language from Columbia's website about 1968. Columbia is a far different place today than it was in this. This is still up on their website. Columbia is a far different place today than it was in the spring of 1968 when protesters took over university buildings amid discontent about the Vietnam War, racism, and the university's proposed expansion into Morningside Park. After a week, and just people would be like, why don't they, limit their demands a little bit? They'd be saying that now. After a week-long standoff, which is took a week as opposed to the first time the cops went in this time, New York police stormed the campus and arrested more than 700 people. The fallout dogged Columbia for years. It took decades for the university to recover from those turbulent times. Columbia now has one of the most socioeconomically diverse student bodies among its peer institutions at a new campus designed to be open, blah, blah, blah.
And here's we got one of our pro-Israel trolls. This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like when you can't address the actual thing they're protesting about, then you claim that they're actually not the people that we say they are that are protesting. And then, when you say they're spoiled elite and then it starts widening out to other colleges, it's like, well, this is where you go. Jimmy, Bobby, Francis, J. Runier says, Sam, ask your daughter how smart college students are. In what other circumstances do we hear protests try and raise the fact that, they're idiots? They're just idiots. Why? Because they're 19 or 18 or 20 or 21 or 22.
Idiots with a sense of history to occupy a building that's been occupied before.
I honestly, in my experience, I can't even, I would put the level of reading into what's going on and the awareness of the actual facts on the ground on your average person who is protesting there against your average person who is firing off, IMs like this or stupid emails. And I am the receiver of a lot of those stupid emails because I am part of a community that was indoctrinated into believing that there was nothing wrong that Israel could do. And it is astonishing, the level of ignorance. On one hand, it's astonishing. On the other hand, it's really the most obvious explanation. You cannot maintain a lot of the positions that people who are supportive of Israel, particularly in this moment, are without having not done a lot of investigation into these questions and into the history. I'm serious. I mean, that's it.
A lot of people run in from dissonance in pretty horrifying ways.
Let's turn off the voicemail. And so you can call the program at 646-257-3920. 646-257-3920 is the number. Let's go to the IMs. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. Third-party candidates had a huge night last night. I don't know. I'm not aware of.
Is that a comment on the protests? Because I don't think Bobby's taking advantage of it.
DSA Aaron from Atlanta was watching Lance from the Surfs go over Emma's debate with Tim, and damn, Tim is dumb. Yeah, that's true. Man on the street. Yay, yo, Sammy, did you really give up a potentially life-changing guest spot on Seinfeld to honor a god I don't think you actually believe in? Damn, guy, that's pretty dumb. First off, I would argue that no, it was not a life-changing guest spot on Seinfeld. I know a lot of people who did guest spots on Seinfeld did not change their life whatsoever. A guest spot like that. I mean, it wasn't huge money, particularly at the time in my career trajectory. But it's not. I don't celebrate Yom Kippur for God's sake. That's not why I do it.
It is funny. Like I feel like I come from that too. Maybe it's from North Dakota, but growing up, if I saw somebody on TV, I'm like, oh, they're set for life. They probably don't need to work another day in their life.
Oh God, no. No, I mean, it would have been fun to do. I would have liked to have done it. But it, no, it wasn't because I was worried about what God thought or frankly, or even had a sense that there was a God. It was just a traditional thing, and it was an opportunity for me to, sort of like spend time with family and friends, and I fast. That's all. Believe me, the things I turned down for absolutely no reason whatsoever were far more potentially life-changing.
To play Grand Theft Auto? Or?
No, it was just like, there was a show called Ally McBeal. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that show.
I was offered by David, what was the guy's name? The guy who created it, David something. He went to BU Law as well. And
David Kelly.
And David Kelly offered me the role of the boyfriend that the guy Gil somebody played. And I said no, because I thought like, this part is like, it's not a fun part. It's too reactive. I don't want to be like, and my agents, my manager, David Kelly, and his number two were just like, what? Are you an idiot? He was the hottest producer. Oh, he was coming off of like, I don't know what he had done. Maybe it was LA Law. Everybody knew it was going to be a hit. And I was like, I don't want to do that. There was a couple of things like that where I did that. And so, believe me, life-changing.
Well, you're here now. So
I got myself fired on that Jim Belushi show too. And that was on for 8 years. That would have been.
Oh yeah, the Dancing Baby. That's what that show is famous for.
What's that?
They had like a CGI dancing baby
on
Ally McBeal.
Oh,
It was like
yeah. I mean,
viral
it was
thing.
a huge show. It was. I mean, I ran into the number two at an audition, and I was reading for him, and I remember the exact moment in the reading where he realized he remembered who I was. Like I could see it on his face. Like, oh, you're the absolute idiot who said no. You're the idiot.
Could have been Gil Bellows. Damn.
Gil Bellows, that was the guy. The Mill Rind. Morning Mika was in full schoolmarm mode with Giardatis on Morning Joe. She reminded me of Linda Blair in The Exorcist with their head spinning around and vomiting green shit. Mika was attempting to make a blanket 1/6 moral equivalency on the campus protests. Oh my God. That is so ridiculous.
Also, did you see the cop going on there with the bike chain? Maybe we could try to find that.
No.
A cop went on Morning Joe this morning and showed a bike chain being like, professionals come with this, not students. And it turns out that it's a bike chain you can buy on Columbia's campus.
Unbelievable. Portland dude, can these students sue the government for infringing upon their First Amendment rights? I don't think so.
I mean, I feel like in Texas specifically, there's that law that said even people from outside can come onto campus. And it was like, I don't know, the Steven Crowder law or whatever. And then now they're talking about outside agitators. I feel like there's got to be some kind of law.
Maybe more so at a state school.
Right, yeah.
Eddie Munster, USPS postal worker here, tuning in intently to this conversation. Great. Exhaust. Wish we could see the other IMs. Have you done any research on how if ExpressVPN is tied to Israel? I know the owner is an Israeli billionaire. I think that the parent company is owned by an Israeli, but I don't know that they themselves are based there. NJ Mailman, can you ask the NLSC guy what's happening with our contract in arbitration? Sorry about that. Just saw that. New Jersey Mailman. Let's go to the phones. Calling from an 832 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Jose from Houston.
Jose from Houston. What's on your mind?
Hey, first I just want to thank you guys for all the coverage you guys do on union business by bringing in reporters and actual union leaders. I'm a conductor for one of the big railroads.
Okay.
And right now there's actually there's a pretty big issue going on between like SMART, which is the union that I'm a part of, and the BLET. Which
Okay.
represents the engineers.
Tell us about it.
Yes. Right now, I'm not part of the Norfolk Southern. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. And they, the BLET, 2 months ago, actually was going against this, what they call progressive investors, trying to take over the board of directors at NS and overthrow their CEO, Alan Shaw.
Okay.
And in February, the BLET was against it because what Ankara is what it's called, the progressive investors trying to take over. They're proposing a plan that'll bring down the OR, the operating ratio of the NS, down to 55%, which all in all means that there's going to be a lot of job cuts to achieve that operating ratio.
All right, I'll tell you what. I mean, this is a little bit involved. I don't really know much. Can you send us an email about this and we can look into it?
Oh, absolutely, I can.
That would be great.
So, all I wanted to point out is that the BLET 2 months ago they were against it, and just a few days ago they're actually now endorsing the private financial capitalist takeover of NS, which will actually lead to a lot of job cuts because they made a deal. The union leadership made a deal that's non-binding, and the private investors also said that it's non-binding. That promotes job cuts, and this is just something I wanted to mention because it's not something I'm very pro-union. It's not something that I would like to see our leadership doing.
So this is you're talking about Norfolk Southern, right? Is that it? When you say NS?
That's correct.
Okay. And what is the union? What is the union that negotiates with them?
The BLET, the Brotherhood Locomotive Engineers.
Okay.
They're negotiating with them now.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and they actually just endorsed a few days ago. They endorsed they endorsed Ankara taking over the board and ousting Alan Shaw, their CEO, who's actually refrained from furloughing people and refrained from promoting PSR, which has led to numerous of jobs.
Okay, you gotta send me an email, and whenever you think to use an acronym, spell it out for me because I don't know all these acronyms.
Okay, I'm sorry, Sam.
No worries.
Send you an email.
But yeah, send me an email. And we'll look into it, and
maybe
we can get somebody on to talk about it.
Okay, thank you, Sam. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
David J. Cedarista, 2011. Happy May Day, Sam. I grew up in Lead, South Dakota, back when gold mine was running, and we celebrated May Day every year when the United Steelworkers Union represented the mine workers. Thanks for all you're doing to amplify union voices.
Wow, I never heard about that. That's fascinating.
PSR is precision scheduled railroading. Thank you, Train Boy. Cat, we were shown last night the lengths they will go to maintain their barbarity, their greed, their power. Fascism has shown its face. They will obliterate you, your children, your family, if you dare question the violence. Now is the time for courage. Together above all, we will win. We will make it a better world together. Do not lose hope. Emma's distant cousin. Sam, have you thought about doing a segment called Sam's Holly Weird Stories? Frank, I can't believe I celebrated Christmas with my family, giving up my life-changing role on Herman's head. You enjoy my socialism. NYPD officer, after breaking 3 ribs on a sophomore English major, whispers in their ear, when Trump is president, I don't know. Shapeshifter. I used to love Ally McBeal, but if Sam had done that role, maybe we wouldn't have had the Majority Report that I love a billion times more. So thank you for sacrificing fame so you could be our angry person on the internet, Sam. It's quite possible that after doing that, I would have done this. I just would have had more name recognition, more cash. I've often thought like maybe I should have done something like that, and ultimately, but it wasn't my plan to do this at any point anyways. It's just a fluke.
Well, you would have thought like use it for like film projects or something. Right?
What's that? That money?
Time, yeah.
Oh yeah, I would have burnt all that money on just like shooting some movies.
RPG at
Exactly. That would have been that was my
wish fulfillment type of stuff.
Exactly. It's like, well, that's what Cassavetes would have done. He had a show called Johnny Staccato, which nobody ever saw. I had videos of it at one point where he played like a PI who also played jazz. And he came back from the Korean War and basically helped out people who would stumble into his jazz club.
Did he use staccato a lot in the jazz?
It was just his name.
That's fine.
Calling from a 317 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 317. All right, putting you back into the queue. Calling from a 323 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. This is Marcus from Huntington Beach.
Marcus from what beach?
Huntington Beach?
Huntington Beach. Welcome to the program.
Yeah,
Marcus.
California.
Yes.
So, yeah, thanks. Been listening to you guys almost every day since 2016, like November 2016. And it's just been really inspiring and helped me get a grasp on what's really going on in politics and inspire me to get involved. So I just really appreciate you guys.
Oh, well, thank you. That's nice.
So just calling for a little bit of advice. I'm here in Huntington Beach, California, where our city council has been completely seized by MAGA conservatives, and they're trying to do things like privatize the public library, and they passed something to do voter ID, which will probably get thrown out. But with you guys have inspired me to be able to go to like these council meetings and speak out and stuff. And when they tried to privatize the library here, there was a huge outcry from the community. Lots of people showed up for the city council meeting, over 300 people. We had the union come down to give their support. And, it really felt like a lot of people are going to, maybe affect some sort of change, but, the MAGA sort of city council doesn't listen. They just sort of pushed on with it anyway. They kind of just listen to the public comment and just because they have to or whatever.
Right.
So I'm just wondering what you do in a situation, like what sort of tactics, my wife always wants me to go back and give more comment, but I'm like, it feels futile in the situation. So I kind of wonder, like, what are some tactics for dealing with, I live in a place that's majority conservative. The city council doesn't listen. Are there tactics to be able to kind of fight back against this thing when you are, when we're the minority trying to, deal with these folks? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, aside from, I think, the contemplate running, but before you even do that, find out who else is there who is supportive of what you're doing and begin to just organize. Meet up and start to strategize with other people in your community who agree with you and see if you can't start to peel off people and make more people aware. Like, you really don't know. There's no way for you to know for sure, right? That everybody is subscribes to some of these things that the council is doing. And you've got the beginnings of like the core of a group there. Now you can also, I don't know if there's a DSA in Huntington Beach. I don't know. But I would start with like, organizing the people that show up there. You're going to, there's going to be one person that says, thanks for your comments or whatever it is, and say, hey, let's trade emails and meet and see if we can't find some other people and start to grow some type of like, organization that's going to push back. You choose an issue or two that you think is going to resonate with the community, and you start to build an organization around that. And maybe, out of that organization, somebody runs and challenges the people on the council, or maybe it just becomes, a way in which to get broader support.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, caller, I have one question. When you say there was a lot of outcry, what did that look like? Like, who was showing up? Where did you see that? I'm just curious about that, because that seems like the moment, that is, okay, people have organically come out here, let's link up.
Yeah, I mean, like at the city council meeting, there was probably I think 300 people showed up for, to give comment. And it was a huge range. There's college kids, there was older folks, and there was much less like MAGA support in the audience, but there would be like a Proud Boy, or they were all kind of in cosplay actually. Anyone that was they were all kind of dressed up, wearing the Save the Children shirts or whatever, and but there was very few of them, but they were there and they were vocal, and then they were really outnumbered by librarians and just.
Well, those are all your people that you start to organize, and I don't know what percentage of those. Let's say there's 100 people there. If you can get 10 of them to agree to exchange emails and to maybe once a month meet, either by Zoom or in person or something like that, and talk about what can we do to garner greater support. Are there specific moments where we should be protesting? Are there in gathering, should we put up somebody to run against? I mean, you come up with an ideas within that group, but the first part is get as big of a group together as you can who are like-minded in that respect.
Great, I love it. Yeah, a couple people got my email address there, so that's a good start.
Well,
but yeah,
you get theirs too, because that way you can initiate that contact. Appreciate the call.
Great.
Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's look to one of the big activists and supporters of the youth on college campuses. In fact, he made his career advocating for college students, and then
which he wasn't one, because big right-wing money guy paid him not to be,
and go around and attempt to organize young people to support Republicans. It's failed miserably, which is why he's moved into media, where he's had, I think, arguably more success. But here he is making a very interesting claim.
That's really what's going on here. And this is a wake-up call for many Jews. And I have sympathy for American Jews that are very confused. However, I have impatience for American Jews that have put up with the anti-white sentiments the last decade and thought it was perfectly fine. Because guess what, American Jews? You're considered white in the eyes of the Marxists. What? I thought white meant like MAGA Christian people in Oklahoma. No. White means you too. Welcome to the most hated class in America today. And Jews...
Pause it for a second.
Like, wait.
Now, I just want to weigh in here because I am Jewish and also white. And what he's talking about is complete BS. It's complete BS. His compatriots, and he knows them well, like the groypers that he's now having to finally cave to. Remember, there was a time where the groypers would show up and they would badger him at his college conferences. And they, of course, were also a big part of his organization. Some people had to get jettisoned because calls were leaked and text exchanges. But those groypers have always been anti-Jew, and he's had to get in there. Now, like he says, he has some sympathy with Jews. But now you shouldn't have been so anti-white, you Jews, he says.
What is the anti-whiteness that Jews are responsible for?
I assume it has something to do with what we did to Christ, right? I mean, no. What is it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what anti-whiteness Jews have been involved with. Is he talking about those guys who were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi, when they were advocating for civil rights? I mean, Where have the Jews like been anti-white?
3 of the 4 Kent State victims were Jewish.
I wonder what he's talking about. What have the Jews been doing that have been so anti-white? And I will tell you something also. The idea of equating anti-Semitism with anti-whiteism, I don't know what anti-whiteism he's been experiencing. But let's continue. This is fast.
Barber's doing some anti-whiteism.
Welcome to the most hated class in America today. And Jews are like, wait, I never thought I was white. I don't identify as white. We're Jewish.
It occurs to me, pause it for 1 second, that I thought anti-white racism was over when we elected a white president. Wasn't that a sign that the anti-white racism was over? I mean, we elected a white president. How much more do these whites want?
Nominated 2 of them last time.
Exactly. Go ahead.
And Jews are like, wait, I never thought I was white. I don't identify as white. We're Jewish. You don't get to determine the rules. Many American Jews are shocked that the organizations and the charities that they have been subsidizing want them dead.
Pause it. I also would be shocked if that was the case. I'm not aware of any of those organizations or what he's talking about. That A, I'm not even aware of which ones he's talking about, but B, I am pretty sure none of them said that we want the Jews dead. I feel like it would be bigger news.
What have evangelical Zionists said about Jewish people? Like, not that they want them dead, but to, I guess.
Well, they want them all to go to Israel and die.
Right.
But first they have to go to Israel. It's conditioned. It's conditioned. That's what the Kufis want. But let's continue.
Charities that they have been subsidizing want them dead. This is cut 67. I think this is illegal, where they are forbidding Jewish students from going to class.
No.
That Jewish kids are being physically prevented from going to class. And I want to make sure this is clear. At the foundational level, this is at UCLA. This is coast to coast. It's because they hate Western civilization, and they have now looped all Jews into the white category. So now Jews are experiencing the hate that we white people have been experiencing the last decade, and we've been warning against. Hey, you know that there's like a lot of venom against white people because of the color of their skin? Too bad. Floydapalooza, BLM, diversity is our strength. And now all of a sudden Jews are saying, this kind of feels like how we got to Auschwitz. This doesn't seem right.
Pause it for
and
a
I'm
second.
glad they're waking.
I just want to make it clear that nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying what he's saying that Jews are making. Every time you fill out one of those census forms as to like what your race is, there is no slot for Jews. They have all been putting white on that, unless they were also a different color or a person of color or something to that effect. Everything he's saying, both the premise and the payoff, is a lie. It's just a lie.
And projection, like they're talking about like Israel as an outpost of Western civilization. Like when you see people say, Barnaby Ray in he's lecturing at Columbia now, is at Navarre Media, pointed out early on that when he was knocking doors for Corbyn, he got a guy saying, I don't support Jeremy Corbyn, but he's anti-Semitic, and he also lets in too many foreigners.
Right.
And it's like, that's because the right wing, they're incorporating Israel into a Western sort of West versus everyone else Manichaean worldview.
Now all of a sudden Jews are saying, this kind of feels like how we got to Auschwitz.
No,
this doesn't seem right. And I'm glad they're waking up. And it is how you get to mass murder. It is how you get to elimination. By hating one group, by sectarianism and tribalism. And the reason why this is breaking the matrix is that for years, it was fashionable and acceptable to hate white people. It's not as fashionable and acceptable to hate Jews. But if you call Jews white, are you then able to hate Jews?
Pause it. I just want to be clear that the white genocide never happened. And the the non-white only country clubs or the quotas for white people at universities or any of those things never, ever, ever happened. They're not happening. They've never happened.
Yeah, I'm a white guy who participated in, say, the Black Lives Matter marches, and didn't really see it as this is an attack on me as a person. Because I don't. I guess
it was so nice of them to let you do that. I mean, to being white, yeah, token white. Go ahead. Oh, that's it right there. Charlie Kirk managing to hitting both things. Like, just want to make it clear, you Jews aren't really white. You're not really white, but now you know what it feels like to be white.
And you kind of have this coming.
And this is what you get. But I do have sympathy for you.
Well, yeah, only some, though. Only some sympathy.
This is like, it's like, how can I have my racism and my anti-Semitism and eat it too? That's what it is.
And still attack the left.
It's fantastic. It's well done. Dan from SoCal. Charlie Kirk is having the time of his life with this segment. He just can't wait to the part where it's okay to openly hate Jews.
He's done this segment about 7 times in the past month.
Yeah. Call him from a 407 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, this is me.
Oh, okay. And who might you be?
Corey from Florida.
Corey from Florida. What's on your mind?
So I wanted to add on to the conversation with the non-competes and kind of tell my story of dealing and going through a battle with a former employer.
Okay. Again, just a reminder, 30 million Americans have been subjected to a non-compete clause, one which was initially an innovation to protect trade secrets with top executives, and now it applies to a huge range of almost 30% of our workforce. The FTC has announced a rule to make these illegal. It'll take about 4 months for it to go into effect. In the meantime, there are lawsuits in the most conservative areas of Texas as a way of rolling it back. But go ahead.
So basically, at my former employer, I was there for 8 years, a good span of time. They told me everything, oh yeah, no, we'll move you up and, we'll make things happen for you, everything. Basically, but whenever I brought up, hey, what about a raise? That was always, now's not a good time is what I got. So eventually the stress had gotten to me and I had seen people, been leaving the companies and trying to go to other companies, but they would get shot down and then have to go into different sectors. So because the non-compete kept them from, going to an employer, within the state.
Right.
Essentially. And I'll get into details too about some of what these non-competes have. So the stress had gotten to me, and over time I had noticed that this has been a pattern. And the companies, they never really paid us, what they should have. So it was easy for them to tangle us up once they found out, where we worked. All they would have to do is, send a letter to that employer or send it to the former employee. And it's all a scare tactic is what it was.
Steven Crowder did that to his employee Jared. I think Jared went on to work somewhere else, and Crowder's company sent a letter, and that company is like, we have a choice? Do we engage in this litigation just for the to have this person, or do we let this person go? And that's what they do. They'll let the person go because they don't want to deal with that potential litigation, even if they could win it. It's like, why spend the resources on that? Fart Wayne on the IM says a friend worked at a flower shop. She signed a non-compete. She moved to a city 600 miles away and was sued by her previous employer.
Yep.
And they have to do that. The reason why the previous employer does it, the reason why the employer does that is not because they want that person to come back and work for them. They want to send a message to their current employees. we will track you down everywhere. You are locked in.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And mine was 250 miles. Wherever they had a location, this is a large multi-million-dollar company.
Right.
So, and naturally, and the thing that really bothered me, and this is before I found your show. Love you guys, by the way. And it would always be, like I said, we weren't paid what we should have. And I'd see my friends and coworkers, some would start families. They just have newborns. And then they're just like, I can't stay here. They're not paying me. I'm going to go. They get served. And then, or either the employee, like you said, says, hey, they're bigger than us. We can't take you on. Or that employee just knows, hey, I got served. I don't want to put you guys through this, but thank you for taking me on, and they'll find another job elsewhere, construction, out of whatever the field is. Or who they deem, this is a big thing too, who they deem as competition. So it could be a company that's in an adjacent sector,
right?
But they still perceive them as competition. So it's whoever, it's up to them.
Again, it's not about they're worried about the competition. They want to be able to control their workers. And so they'll have an expansive vision of what constitutes competition so that they can just scare people off. Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Left is best.
Left is best.
I feel like Jimmy John's sandwiches were the first place I heard of friends having to sign NDAs.
That's insane.
Crazy.
You don't want people to know the sandwich technology.
They could just open the sandwich.
We put the meat in between the bread, and we don't want anybody to figure out we're doing that. 13th, oh my God. For the Huntington Beach person, we have an OC, I assume Orange County DSA. Let's check that out. Will you Google the word dense and just put the definition up on the screen for me? I don't know if the kids are using this anymore as a way of saying that someone is not very bright. It is, I think it still is an informal, there you go. The first definition of it as an adjective is it's closely compacted in substance, like a dense volcanic rock. The second one, which is more informal, is of a person is stupid. I introduced that concept because what I'm about to show you is about 35 seconds long. And the intensity and the sheer density of stupidity that is fit into this 35 seconds is fascinating.
It's concentrated.
It is so concentrated. It is the densest example of a dense person that I could give you. And
it's like a Tide Pod of idiocy.
It is like a Tide Pod within a Tide Pod. It's like here is Dave Rubin with just whatever he's getting paid by the organization that sent him to Israel and bought him his mirrored sunglasses and his his dress-up IDF outfit, is really getting their money's worth because he is willing to, well, fortunately for him, he's not that bright. So it's probably not as painful as it should be to him. But listen to his explanation of what's going on and how he ties it into sort of COVID denialism. It's fascinating. This only takes 35 seconds to express.
And who knows how many of those people are actually students? They're all masked. And I firmly believe now that COVID was just a test run to see how we could normalize masks so we could have jihadists out in the streets. We don't know how many of them are, as I said, students, but how many of them are even citizens of the United States. And just try to imagine for just 1 second, if this was a group of white students screaming about black people, or if this was MAGA supporters burning down things at Columbia, Joe Biden would literally send in the National Guard, right?
Okay.
But the left does not know when the left goes too far.
Okay. and we're going to have to play this again and break it down, but let's just start to the end. We just played you clips of New York City Police Department come with a vehicle I've never ever seen in my life. And it is some type of like a vehicle that has it's an NYPD branded vehicle that has a sort of ladder ramp type of situation where they brought in SWAT teams with shields to barge into this building to throw out these college students who were in fact college students.
Turns out.
We just watched footage of pro-Israel so-called protesters who really look like more like thugs sent out to beat up protesters at UCLA while the fully militarized, geared up cops just watched them.
But it's the ultimate meaningless sort of distinction because, like, as it's been shown, these were all students and they don't care either. They still condemn it.
No, of course. They're all students, and the National Guard or some iteration, maybe it was municipal and state as opposed to the National Guard, were in fact called out. In fact, the media is full of images of just seas of state cops, city cops.
I believe it was a strategic resources group.
All and all.
That was made for anti-terror.
And it's just amazing how much stupidity just got in the last like 12 seconds of that video. But let's get to the front part. The part where I don't even know if they're college students, as if that makes a difference to him. But this part about the COVID thing is and we should also say, I mean, putting aside the fact that all those UCLA pro-Israel sort of thugs also wearing ski masks, the cops all wearing ski masks.
As they arrest professors.
I mean, maybe he hasn't been watching the news, but let's continue.
Who knows how many of those people are actually students? They're all masked, and I firmly believe now that COVID was just a test run to see how we could normalize masks so we could have jihadists out in the streets. We don't know how many of them.
Okay, stop it. So now he firmly believes that COVID was a test run so we could have masks out in the street so that we can hide the identities of jihadists. So presumably COVID was deployed. Right. I'm just, using the parlance of the COVIDers. COVID was deployed by jihadists.
Like Fauci.
Like Fauci or whomever it was. And their idea was, hey, let's deploy a virus that will, of course, impact, everybody. And let's make it so that it kills just a couple of million people in the, 1.5 million in the U.S. instead of, let's say, 10 million or 50 million. Let's not take any credit for it. Let's not threaten the world with releasing another one. That would be too direct. Let's just use it as a way that people can use masks so they can't be doxxed at protests in the future to argue against an Israeli genocide of Palestinian people. Brilliant idea. You know what's so amazing about that idea, fellow jihadist, is that it's so indirect that nobody will be able to figure it out. You'd have to be an absolute genius on the level of Einstein to figure out this plan because it's so obtuse, and yes, it's under the radar. It's actually to the side of the radar.
To me, it looks like people did mask uptake, kind of like post bird flu in Asia, because a respiratory virus is maiming people.
You're an idiot, Matt. If you don't see that the jihadists did that as a test case to get you used to the concept of future pandemics.
Nobody had
Did you understand that was it MERS? Was it SARS? SARS was just a way to open the door for COVID to get everybody wearing masks.
As a test run for the test run.
Mm-hmm. And this whole thing too with like asbestos remediation. Jihadists have been basically perpetrating this fraud that asbestos is bad for your lungs, so that it can normalize people having masks, so that when COVID hit, there'd be a lot of people wearing N95 masks to allow jihadists to go protest in the future without being identified. You got to think this way. You got to think this through, Matt. Sorry. Is there nobody who works around Dave Rubin, who talks to Dave Rubin, who can sit him down and go like, dude, if you want to keep doing this, just do it, but just remove all sharp objects from your, like we're worried about you. You're going to poke your own eye out. That level of stupidity is just, nobody's that stupid who watches your show. And Rubin's like, I don't know about that.
They're going to really miss any mileage they can get out of the COVID stuff, because I feel like it's receding just very fast.
Oh.
And it's still their totem.
Oh, totally. I mean, all the crime folks, all the anti-vax folks, all the, the people, like, remember, like, all the this is an authoritarian play to shut down speech. Like, it's amazing that the cops are doing this now when there's no COVID. It's so strange. The cops don't even have to say, like, don't catch COVID. That's why we're coming and knocking your heads in this encampment. All of these people who built their sort of like entire, business model around this stuff, they're going to be reaching back for this for years. And it'll work with a lot of their audience just because, Vince Foster worked up until a couple years ago. So it will work. And yes, 99% of you have no idea what I mean when I say Vince Foster. And that is because you're normal people.
You're good.
You're normal people. But if you really want to go look it up, be my guest. But understand that to be Vince Fostered was a verb amongst right-wing talkers as late as like 4 or 5 years ago.
Dan Loesch, I think, was the last
Yep.
one.
Unbelievable. Nola Birdwatcher, Sam, the topic of Social Security has been popping up rather often lately in my conversations. Any suggestions on sources I can immerse myself into so that maybe I can be as as well-versed in the subject as you? Yes, it's quite easy, actually, to get a Social Security makeover. Check out the work that Alex Lawson does over at Social Security Works. That's the first place, a great resource. And then the other thing is the Social Security Trustees report is issued every year. And you can go and check this out. But there's really two things that you need to know. One, there are 3 scenarios presented by the Social Security Trust Fund. There's a conservative one, a loosey-goosey one, and one in the middle. And the trust fund is just like a reserve fund that was instituted to deal with this demographic explosion that we had in the boomers. And it was established in the 80s. It was a deal. Reagan had come up with a commission. They expanded it. The trust fund, when it runs out, will mean that we will be about 20% short on providing benefits for people when they retire. And it's not like you can retire early. You won't get full benefits. You can retire a little bit later. You'll get a little bit higher benefits. And now the retirement age, I think for people depending on your age is more often than not 67. And also know that when this Social Security Trust Fund exhausts somewhere around 2033, it will mean that Social Security is in the exact same position as every other aspect of our budget, except for Social Security cannot add to the deficit. It must have its own funding mechanism, which is that Congress will have to vote, as they do every year, to authorize more money for it or not. And the way that they would raise that money would be through taxes. And there's multiple ways in which you can go about doing that as well. But right now, in 2025, Did you know the military budget is completely unfunded? It is completely unfunded.
It's insolvent. Our
In
enemies,
fact, the entire government is insolvent in 2025.
Xi Jinping just waiting.
Unless, of course, Congress does something, in which they will do.
Also, Matt Brunig at People's Policy Project has a good.
Oh, yes. He's good on that.
How to end Social Security scaremongering. His subhead: swap out automatic benefit cuts with automatic tax increases. Sounds nice to me.
There you go. Just in terms of your vernacular. All right, let's do this. Let's do this PDB thing. I've been waiting on this one. I know I said that Dave Rubin brought about the densest example of a dense person possible, and we saw that in 35 seconds. Patrick Bet David and his crew are not as concise. So their denseness is actually spread out a little bit. And if you want to nitpick, you can say, well, that's not that dense. But I'm talking about what they're saying is dense. The density of their denseness is not as much as Dave Rubin's.
Yeah, this is like luxury denseness.
This is exactly right. This is business executive. This is executive denseness, where we lean back and we take our time in nice chairs.
Smoke a tobacco pipe.
This is the live show they're doing. They've invited Tulsi Gabbard on.
Wow.
And
back from maneuvers in Africa.
This is them. It's so weird about, what the right wing will do to make their audiences not engage with a topic. I mean, it's fascinating to me because the way that we would do this is to go deep into what they're doing, right? I mean, if people were marching in Charlottesville, we would dig deep into that and say, look at who these guys are. Look at what they're saying. Look at what they're doing. They're exactly who they say they are. But when protests like this happen, when it was George Floyd or when it was anything else, none of it's real. It's both wrong and fake. And that's what's sort of fascinating about the way the right has to deal with these things. They cannot address the question of, should we be supporting Israel's onslaught of the Gazan of people in Gaza? And why? Because they know what the polls say. So they've got to do like a second or third order attack on it. And the beauty for them, the advantage they have is that they have cultivated a conspiratorial, not terribly deep audience.
Actual marks for multi-level marketing.
For multi-level marketing scheme. Yes, here we go.
Have you guys seen all these camping, what these kids are doing? Rob, can you show some of these videos with the protests going on across the country on university?
Pause it for 1 second. Now, as you watch this, don't keep it up there. As you watch this, I want you to look and see where the violence is coming from. It is literally, they don't realize that they are just showing examples of police being brutal to people who clearly are just trying to run away. Like there's not, these guys, remember, they're trying to put this in the worst possible light. And there's not a single instance where they can show any of the protesters doing anything other except for trying to stop the cops from beating them.
Yeah, or getting fall down by a giant cop.
Completely peaceful protest, except for the cops standing and shoving people into the ground.
That's USC, Los Angeles.
Yeah, like, oh my God, what are those uniformed rioters doing? Incidentally, they're tackling a legal, what do you call it, observer. Go ahead. Oh my God, look at this. These protesters with their phones videotaping the cops being brutal. It's so wrong.
They're violently.
Do you have the clip of the two girls when they're being asked that Vinny showed us about?
Okay, so in other words, he finds out, don't take him down. He finds out, keep him up. He finds out, he realizes like, oh, this isn't helping the argument. How about let's prove that all the protesters are stupid. Now, here's the thing, though, that he doesn't even realize because he doesn't even really pay attention to what he's putting up there. These are students that are coming down from Columbia. They are showing solidarity with the protesters at NYU. They know Columbia's assets and policies and whether the issues about divestiture in Columbia. They don't know them at NYU, which of course is incredibly reasonable.
Right.
But they're going to make it out like these kids don't know what they're doing. Here we go.
Vinny, did you send it to him or no? You have it. If you want to send it to him, these two girls are being asked.
Am I
Hey, what are we here for? What are we protesting?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what we're here for, but I think we're What are you guys here for? Have you seen this clip?
Yeah, of course.
Show
There's
this
so
clip.
many of them.
Well,
So
I mean,
many of these.
the point is, though, if you think about this, I wonder if somebody that's extremely like purely a technical data person, where were chaos in 2016? High. Then it drops. Then where was chaos in 2020? BLM protesting high. 2021. Chaos drops. 2021, 2022.
Pause it for 1 second.
2023.
What was the chaos in 2016?
I know. I was trying to think
He's
about
just
that.
making this stuff up. He's just making this stuff up because he's got some conspiratorial thing. And what does chaos mean?
The chaos levels are off the charts.
The chaos levels are off the charts.
Kind of like you need to buy this health insurance.
High. 2021. Chaos drops. 2021, 2022, 2023, 24. Where's chaos now with election? You're again high. This is a different kind of a chaos. They all come in different shapes. And go ahead and play this clip, Rob.
What would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what?
Look.
Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Watch.
I wish I was more educated. I'm not either.
God.
I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support, so I came down.
You can pause it, Rob. What a great line.
Oh, pause it. Yeah, in other words, we were supposed to cut before she explains that she's a Columbia College student who came down to support NYU. She had been up in Columbia, so she doesn't know the specific holdings that NYU may have or what the NYU students may be demanding specific to NYU. She knew it was there to support broadly Palestine. And he's mad because they should have cut out before then. Go ahead.
Our support, so I came down.
You can pause it, Rob. What a great line.
Yeah.
On a university campus, a student saying, I wish I was more educated.
A student of a different university.
A student of a different university conceding, I don't know the specifics about what's going on here at NYU.
And this is why you see all these different journalists like Michael Paul of The Atlantic go and say, none of these people want to talk to me yet. And they sent me to their official representatives. It's because of stuff like this, because people are looking to just discredit it with cheap shit like this.
Of course. And this ding dong didn't know to cut before it gets to her actual explanation.
Agree. I wish you were. By the way, think about who's influencing this, though. Think about who's influencing this. Who's driving this hatred for America? Who's driving this division? It is, if
Pause
you
it for
think
a
about
second.
who's driving.
Now, this is a pro-Palestine rally. There's no doubt people are skeptical about America's role in supporting Israel. But how does this become an America hate operation? You know who could be behind it? You know who could be behind it? I wonder if there's somebody pulling the strings, if you know what I mean. Go ahead.
Hatred for America. Who's driving this division? It is, if you think about who's driving this division, who is it? Professors.
1,000.
Who else is it? So I'm a professor. I'm teaching these kids. It is not fair what these rich people are doing. Lecture. Divide, go protest. Hey, all of these kids that are not getting Sally Mae's, let's bail them out. Taxpayers, you'll pay for them. You guys are so awesome. You keep working hard. You work your ass off. We'll take 60% of your money, 50% of your money. But these poor kids going to college who hate America, you don't need to pay your college tuition. You're okay, sweetheart. But vote for us because we care
He's
about you.
so mixed up in what he's talking about here. First of all, the audience is looking like 50, 60% of our money. What are you talking about? Well, no, I'm part of your multi-level marketing program. I haven't made that money yet. I haven't been able to convince enough of my friends to sell the insurance package below me on on the hierarchy.
Yeah, and just I am actually an NYU graduate. When I was at NYU, there were things like sit-in protests against not Israel, but the Abu Dhabi campus, which was being built with slave labor in the Gulf states. Which is the demands now are, let's let's divest from these Tel Aviv campuses and stuff like that. It's the exact same thing. We're only just.
I also love the idea that he tries to discredit the students by not knowing what they're talking about, and then discredits the professors who are presumably experts in what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay your college tuition. You're okay, sweetheart. But vote for us because we care about you more than anybody else does.
And you nailed
But
it.
We care for you.
Yeah,
we really do care
and you
for
nailed it, Pat, because think about it. These are all Ivy League schools. That's not organic.
No.
Somebody is organizing that. And when you said who's doing it, besides the professors, besides TikTok
Jorge.
that you were talking about.
You think it's Jorge?
Jorge's 100% involved in
Jorge's
it.
involved?
Jorge.
And then,
Jorge.
No.
this
It's
is
called
one of the
Jorge
main.
Soros.
Oh, yeah.
Jorge Soros.
Mira, I thought you meant
Jorge Soros. Jorge Soros.
Oh, you mean Jorge Soros, who put $15 million, funneled $15 million to fund. Think about it. Why would a Jewish guy pay to have Hamas protesters? That's such a weird correlation. It's
Well, pause it.
weird. It's like
First off, it's not a correlation. But aside from that, it is weird. Yeah. It is weird that a Jewish guy would fund pro-Hamas protests. In fact, it's so weird that it makes you feel like maybe that didn't happen.
It's imaginary.
Yeah. Maybe there's a lot of Jews who just don't like Israel hijacking their religion as a justification for the slaughter of other people. No, I don't know if there's a correlation there. Go ahead.
us protesters, that's such a weird correlation. It's weird. It's like he wants to cause this division, this craziness, this chaos. And you nailed it, Pat. It's during this election year, and it's like, don't be fooled, guys. This is all a distraction. They're showing you. They don't even know what the hell they're in the street for. Yeah. And this should sum everything up about that person. She's wearing a mask outside.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know about who she is and her level of education.
So
extremely responsible, Vinny. Give her
well,
some
number
credit.
one, thank God it's not you, Jorge, because I love you, bro. He's not there on the camera on the AV. But yes.
Pause it for a second. And just a reminder that you'll recall there were students at Harvard who early on were protesting this onslaught in Gaza, and pro-Israel groups doxed them and threatened them with no employment in the future. And so people started wearing masks, not because they're concerned about COVID, although some people may. You don't know the immune issues that people have, and if they think they're going to be in tight spaces.
My barber wears a mask. I wore one too for that reason.
There you go. But in terms of outside, more often than not, a lot of these people are doing it so that they're not doxxed. Go ahead.
Not you, Jorge, because I love you, bro. He's not there on the camera on the AV. But yes, the professors, I think 13-1 liberal versus conservative professors in the universities. We've gone over this. When we started the podcast, it was 11-1. Now it's even increased. TikTok, for sure. Indoctrination over education. We're seeing that now. That's part of that. Soros. But I'm actually putting this on one person, Joe frickin' Biden, because he doesn't have clarity on this. It'd be so. These are useful idiots.
Pause.
You know, they say when you're pause. Thank you. Callback comedy. When you're young, if you are not a liberal, you have no heart. When you're older, if you're not a conservative, you have no brain. They're young. I understand why a young person, whether it's in the Vietnam anti-war movement, whether it's the Occupy Wall Street movement, we've seen young people get involved in these types of things, and it'll continue to do this. But Biden doesn't have the freaking balls to be like, bro, Israel's an ally. They're a democracy. Hamas is a terrorist group, just like Tulsi just had the balls, more the balls than Joe Biden, respect, to say, yes, we're on team.
Adam.
I know, it's not a trans joke. It's Tulsi, you get what I'm saying.
I accept it in the spirit
yes,
it was spoken.
Spiritual, exactly. But there's two reasons why Biden...
It wasn't spiritual, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Adam. You're on a roll. Let's go.
You're a beautiful woman. You're at the top of Trump's list. But there's two reasons, and you can point right to it. Why is he doing this? There's two reasons. The young woke crowd, the intersectional decolonialization crew that's being indoctrinated. But number two, Michigan. Okay, Michigan is in play. It's the number one state in the Blue Wall State. Dearborn, Michigan is the number one state where our friends of that religion live, and that's where Rashida Tlaib is a congresswoman, Palestinian congresswoman, who is the only person to basically vote against supporting an ally. He wants their votes. So Joe Biden doesn't have what I call balls to be like, we're on pro-democracy, pro-Israel, not on pro-Hamas. And that's the problem.
What do they like? What's amazing is that there's no one there to say, like, well, then why are these protests there? Like, if Biden is doing what they want to do, why are they protesting him? Why are no one from Dearborn want to meet with the administration if he's actually doing their bidding? Like, Joe Biden's literally doing the opposite of what this guy is saying. And I wish Joe Biden would do what this guy said.
Yeah.
But the reason why they're protesting is because he's not. Why would they be protesting him? But it's amazing. They live in such a, like, sort of a bubble. And they're also not even bright enough to not completely contradict themselves within seconds of anything that comes out of their mouths. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally one of the demands is to call on Biden and New York representatives to call for a ceasefire.
It is amazing. But it also goes to show you that if you have enough money that you've earned through a multi-level marketing scheme, you can make yourself a big show on the right.
Yeah, although I will say I appreciate the crowd shots because that is a demented, sad atmosphere of maybe like 50 people who are probably into like PBD for thousands of dollars for like training courses or some shit.
Exactly. Is there anything more? Should we play the rest of this? We got another minute. Let's do it.
Pro-democracy, pro-Israel, not on pro-Hamas. And that's the problem. And then the chaos will trickle down because we don't have leadership at the top that basically speaks truth to power.
Speaks
Tulsi,
truth to
I'll
power.
give you the final thoughts here before we
Speaks
wrap
truth
up.
to power.
Those who care about the Palestinian people should be just as outspoken against Hamas as we are today.
For everyone out there that's watching, everyone out there
Oh, that's it. Yeah. Well, we don't need any more of that.
Thank you, Tulsi.
Folks, I'm sorry we've run out of time for any more phone calls, and we're going to read a couple IMs, and then we're going to get going because I've got a lot of stuff to do. This is not the only thing I do in a day. I got a lot of appointments to get to. Of important people. Not Nick Fuentes. Hello, Sam. Please have a shofar for all the workers in America that are working today in International Workers' Day, a holiday that is not recognized in most of the Anglosphere, but is recognized in the rest of the world. Happy International Workers' Day. You should be having a Dos Equis tonight. Left is best. I'll do that.
Wait, sorry, why a Dos Equis?
I don't know.
Okay.
Swing state. In 2016, women were marching wearing vagina hats equals chaos. Duh, but not before the election.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what the closest thing to chaos would have been. Dapple? But that was even kind
are
of
they just saying? Are they just saying like Trump?
2015, 14.
But are they just saying like, or like specifically protests? Because I feel like all the protests against Trump and like the
there was
immigration ban were like after he was
no,
like
there was
going
no,
to the airports.
2016.
And stuff.
The only
2017.
The only chaos was just sort of like Trump's
running for president.
Yeah,
right?
He's just making stuff up.
Because Charlottesville was 2017, and I feel like the travel ban stuff was 2017.
I remember 2016. It was not. There was no chaos.
The chaos was off the charts. Off the charts. Chaos numbers.
It's just so strange. And there's no one there to go like, hey, what are you talking about?
No, it's all vibes.
BRD, man. Could I get a shofar for my father, Neil, who passed away last week? Yes. This is to your dad. Sam from Ottawa. Sam, you're thinking about Jeffries being speaker all wrong. It's not about getting stuff done. It's about being absolutely hilarious. I mean, the Democrats should be running on a do-nothing Congress. And I'm quite sure they must have made some type of deal with Johnson about getting that supplemental. So the value of having Jeffries there, I don't think is that much, but it's certainly possible. Certainly Matt Gaetz said it might be possible, but on top of which, like, they also have to take advantage of the failures of Congress to do anything, which they have not been doing.
And political playbook this morning, there are sources saying that the leadership would potentially try to get some bipartisan like planks and certain pieces of like must pass legislation to continue to keep to table the motion to vacate, like the internet connectivity thing, or like the like that Josh Hawley bill about nuclear decontamination efforts, things like that. And also
wasn't that Hawley thing built into the internet bill?
Right, I think they're hoping that stuff will go into a must pass or something like that to kind of continue them helping Johnson. But the other thing is,
that's fascinating.
All three of them, Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar, all said that this would apply basically for the one motion to vacate. They're not committing to repeat saves.
It's so awesome. Every time we're going to defeat a motion to vacate, we're also going to include a bunch of like stuff that we want. That is actually very smart strategy. If they can get, 5, 10, 20 million people internet service, that's great. Juniper J, it's 1968 all over again. Where's the Democratic Convention going to be this year? Where is it? Is it in Chicago? No, Chicago. I'd love for you to tell people where the term outside agitator came from. Also, Lawrence O'Donnell couldn't lick the NYPD's boots more enthusiastically last night.
I mean, an entire media class is absolutely discrediting themselves in a way, in my opinion. I mean, I don't remember the Iraq War lead up, but this just seems so egregious.
Oh,
Anderson Cooper too.
It's not nearly as bad, but it's bad. Sam's mailman. Let's just assume there was no other way. Maybe he's got rabies like Old Yeller. You've got a shot. You shoot your dog. How is your next thought? Damn, I want to keep this going. Go get the goat.
I'm telling you, I think she was admitting to a blood sacrifice and just kind of hinting at it in some sort of folksy way.
You get out in front of it.
This is Bohemian Groves type stuff.
Get out in front of it. Mailman Paul. A great place to have meetings to organize your community groups, especially if librarians are on your side, is the library. Speaking from experience here. Chicago letter carrier. Please clip Tyler's interview for YouTube. Left is best. We will. All right. 5 more. Serious business. An entry-level ticket is one that lets you use the bathroom at the venue. Only that. Kid tested, Politburo approved. The contrast between the police responses to Uvalde and student protests is about as stark as it gets. Not sure how anyone has respect for cops when they need a militia, armored vehicles to go in and beat up college kids.
It's a sign of where we invest in this country.
Mike from Bavaria, what Kirk is doing is the same that one tweet Elon Musk responded with, "You have said the actual truth," back in November. 2 more. Val Shells. In today's X-Men episode 1, if the villains said that a genocide wasn't happening when it was in fact happening, they would have some pretty good right-wing skewering episodes so far. Not sure I follow that. Otto Matlek, civil unrest with direct demands happens. Intelligent right-winger response, fake and gay, actually. And the final I am of the day. Between the 101 and the 5, Ruben's starting to sound like Nancy Pelosi, and Sam just said, below me. Below me. Thank you for a great final I am of the day.
Thanks for the level 5 hype train we're going out on.
Oh, level 5 hype. Oh, I got some other big news on Twitch. We got elevated to level 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're almost clear now.
So that means, folks, on Twitch, when you, give us your subscription for the month, because you have one if you're an Amazon Prime member, we get something like now some higher percentage of it than we got before.
Well, I saying a 70-30 split in the chat.
So, Poggers. Matt, Bradley, great job today. Emma, we'll see you tomorrow. folks. I'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive